Hello, this is Carrie Waltz. I'm going to try to take these three colors and mix up colors for a black and white neutral so that I can create some black and white value studies. This is one I did several weeks ago, and I want to do some more of those to practice seeing values. When they're finished and dry, I'll go back over them and add color, and it helps me see that I have the right value when I paint this background color. Say if it's green and I put a green down, and my black and white painting will help me know that if that's the right value of green or if I need to be darker or lighter. It was really interesting when I figured that out. So now I know why artists have done this for years. I just have refused to, because honestly I thought it was a waste of time, but it is helping me learn to see values, and it's an exercise I need to repeat. So when I'm doing things like this, I use my Winton, more of my student grade. This is a pretty decent student grade oil paint. I think I paid $17 or so per large tube, and it goes a long way. That was French ultramarine blue, titanium white, and burnt sienna. And when I do this palette, I'm going to keep, I actually mix it the opposite direction most of the time, but I already laid it down that way, so that's how it'll be. Let me get my palette knife. If you're going to mix colors, I much recommend that you use a palette knife instead of a brush. All right, this will do. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take a pretty good chunk of this blue, and I'm going to put not quite as much blue in this pile, and then I'm going to put more brown in this pile and less brown in this pile. And I'm just going to mix it up. I'm sure that's not near enough brown to neutralize that blue. But what I want to do is make a very, very dark color where this first one is closest to the blue, leans toward the blue, where the neutral closest to the brown leans toward the brown. So I'm going to get a warm brown that'll lean toward the brown, and I'm going to get a cool blue, I said that wrong. I'm going to get a warm gray that leans toward the brown. It'll have a little more brown in it. And I'm going to get a cool gray that'll lean toward the blues. So right now they are so dark, I can still see that this one's blue, the browner than the other one. But what I like to do, a couple of things, if your lighting is, I have an aught light on this, sorry about the glare, but I figured that would be the best way for you to see the colors. But again, this is going to be what I pull most of my colors from. So I want this, I want to have a pretty good amount of paint here. Matter of fact, I'm just going to push that in there and push this in here. I'm going to get out a little bit more in a minute, because obviously I didn't squeeze out enough. That actually looks like a good black, but when you squeeze, when you thin it out over here, you can see that that's very, very blue, and I'm sure that's bluer than what I want. I want to make a neutral so that it can be black and white. So because I'm going to be using these as my main colors, and I'm going to add white to each of the piles. I want to make sure I have enough. And probably means I don't have enough white either, but I want to be able to paint several paintings with this, even though the paintings I'm going to paint are small. It's very helpful to have it all mixed out. So if I'm not sure how this is leaning, I'm going to take a little bit of this, just set it here, and I'm going to put a tiny bit of white with it. White is an equalizer. It helps you see how your colors are leaning. So that's very, very blue. I don't want it that blue. It's a pretty blue. It's a great neutral blue, but it's too blue. I want a cool blue, but I don't want it that cool. So I'm going to add a chunk more of brown to this large blue mixture because I want it cool, but not that much. So mix this up, push it all together. Looks like a really good black, actually. All right, so I think that's pretty mixed. Pull some over, put just a little bit there, and get a tiny bit of white here. Yeah, that's more of a gray tone. I like that better. That still might be a little too blue, but that'll be okay. We can definitely see that that's leaning toward blue, even though it's gray. So let's test this one out. I think I'm going to have to make a whole bunch more, so I'm going to just add a chunk while I'm doing that. It's too brown. Can see it before I even check it with the white. Still too brown. It's very good brown. Nice and dark. I want this part to be as dark as possible, because if I'm going to do a painting that has a very, very dark part to it, I want to have a nice enough, deep enough dark that it's a good contrast. That looks still too brown, but I'm going to test it. I'm going to pull a little bit over here, wipe my palette knife, get just a tiny bit of white that's clean, and let's see how that goes. That's a pretty good neutral, but both of these, that's really blue and that's more brown. So I'm gonna add a little more brown to that and a little more blue to this. I want it still a little more neutral. So a little more brown to that, a little more blue to this one. Okay, mix it all up. Feel like I'm icing a cake. Like that. It's fun. You could leave it that brown if you wanted to. To me, that if you can get it a little more gray away, it already is a gray. A gray is a toned down color, a toned down version of a color. So I'm going to put this here. Just test it. Probably put a little too much white in there, but I'll add a little bit of this to check. Yeah, that's more gray. That's more gray. You can see how much cooler it is than this one because I've added more blue. So let's see what I did over here. Maybe I didn't warm it up too much. Okay, so I'm going to put a little blob there. Wipe off my palette knife. It's so much easier to do with a palette knife. Okay, don't have quite enough of that in there to compare. Still don't have enough. Okay, that is still bluer than this, so I'm okay with that. I'm going to stick with these colors. So now I'm going to use this for this row. I'm going to do at least 4 other little piles to make different values of this cool gray. So you want to take well, I want to have enough to paint with. So I'm going to take quite a big chunk of that, and I'm going to add a good chunk of white to it. It's kind of half and half. We'll see where that lands. Okay, there's a huge jump between here and here. So I'm going to pick this up, and I'm going to move it over. Because that's too light to be that close to the darkest dark. And one thing that's helpful, I'm going to keep it in the plastic for right now, maybe it won't be too much of a glare, is I'm looking at the value. That is very close to what I would call a 6. When I squint, it looks similar to that. That's definitely what would be my 10. So this would be in the mid-range, and I need something in between. So I'm going to take another chunk of color here, and I want a pretty decent amount, but I'm going to add a lot less white. One reason why I wanted this row here and this row here is when I paint, if I want to show something in the distance, I know I want to cool it down. And now there's shadows and also are also cooled down. But if the things that are in the distance, it'll remind me it's further away than this. This will be warm, so it's going to be closer to me. That's further away. So, okay, so when I'm here, you might not, let me take it out. Okay, so you can't see this very well with the light, but when I hold this one, and I squint, I've got to hold it where I can see through it. This is pretty much that value. This one's pretty much that value. So when I can hold it over the right value and squint, wish you could see it. It's not going to work very well because of the glare on this. But this would be my darkest dark, this would be a medium, this would be a light. And then I want obviously a lighter color. So when I do the lightest ones, I start with white, and I don't want to go all the way back over here and pull some because I might get too much. It's better just to pull from the previous color. And mix it in that way. So then I have a light, medium light, darker, and darkest dark. So if I'm doing a landscape, my sky will probably be this color, and my flat plains, which are usually like roads or flat fields, that would be this color. Angled fields, slanted plains would be more this color or somewhere in between. And then vertical up and down will be your strongest dark, so maybe trees or a side of a building. And that's just general. So I like that so far. So I'm going to keep those, and that's only 4, because if we want to do some simplifying, we're going to try to simplify into no more than 4 values for a painting. So I already have this one. So I'm going to start with a pretty good chunk of white like I did with this one, half and half. And I'm going to take a chunk of this, and we'll see if I land in about the same value as that one. If not, I'll adjust it a little bit. But you can definitely see that this is warmer, this is browner than that. And brown colors, not brown colors, warm colors advance, cool colors recede. So, okay, now, the way I check this, the easiest way for me, of course I can kind of squint and see if they look the same. They look pretty close. But what I like to do is take my phone or camera, and I'm filming with my camera, my phone. Oh, there's my other, that's my old phone I'm filming with. So what I'm going to do with my camera is I'm going to really double check is I'm going to take a picture of these 2 colors. And when I take a picture of these 2 colors and then I go to edit, or you can set it on black and white, mine doesn't do that. I have to go to edit and then take out the color. When I take out the color, these 2 are almost identical in value. Don't know if you can see that, but I think you can. Alright, so I'm happy with that. So I already know how to mix this one. I'm going to start off with that white, and I'm going to take a little bit of this because I don't want to start with the really dark. And I'm just making a very slight variation. Now this is lighter than that, so if I wanted to try to stay as true to that, I'm going to add just a touch more. And it doesn't have to be identical. I just like to see if I can try to make it that way so I can practice getting my values close. So another way, you can take what's on your palette knife, put it on top of this one, and squint, and if you can't see much color variation, then you've got your value about right. Alright, so now I need to do this. Ooh, I don't have much white. So you go through a lot of paint, so put out more than you think you're going to need. Camille Proswatic said paint like you're a millionaire. Squeeze out a bunch. I know I'm not a millionaire, but at least money-wise. But anyway, that'll be enough. So I'm going to take, oh, that's too much white probably. Well, I just won't add, I'll add less than half. Oh, no, more than half, because that was half. All right, we'll see how this goes. too light because I can easily see that when I squint my eyes, that's definitely darker. So, add some more. It's getting closer. Add some more. Again, I don't want to add so much that I lose my original color. That's pretty close. Okay, so I hold my palette knife on above this and I squint and I don't see much difference. Now, again, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that with the light. So what I've done is I have 4 different values of grays leaning toward, or grayed down colors. That one obviously is warmer. So if you want to keep a swatch of what you've done, just use a index card. I love index cards. Just for that reason, and to test your colors if you want to see if it matches the value of something. Well, if that's the case, when I want to double check the value, I put it all the way to the end so that I can hold it up to what I'm looking at to see if it's too light or too dark. Okay, I'm just going to wipe my brush off. I'm not using mineral spirits. Okay, there's my other gray. If I add mineral spirits, then I'm going to be having to dry it off. One thing I did note, that this is a gray background underneath my glass. So the first time I did this exercise, I thought that these were a lot lighter than they actually were, but because they were on gray, it was a little deceptive. So these are my warm grays, and now it's a little easier to compare. I can hold this up, see how that's very similar. Might be a little, it might be, oh yeah, there we go. That almost disappears, the right value, so that would be a value 6. Now I switched it. I always think, to me, the darkest is a higher number. So that's definitely my 10. That would be a 6, and this would be an 8. So 10, 8, 6, and it's a 2. So that's how I'd see that, but hopefully that helps you. Okay, so now I'm going to start with getting the light off my brush. I'll go ahead and start with the lighter colors here. This one. Wipe that off. Again, you can definitely see the coolness in these, but they've been toned down because of the burnt sienna. And burnt sienna has so much orange in it, it's kind of like an opposite, because blue and orange are opposite on the color wheel. And they neutralize each other. Alright, this was 10, 8, 6, and 2. So let's see how this reads. I think that's still a 10. This is where you really have to squint, because this is cooler. This is a warmer color. It's easier. It's okay. I still think that's an 8. When I squint, they kind of disappear. I'm going to go to the 6. That is pretty close to a 6. Let's try 5. Nope, I can see more change in that. So I'm going to go back to the 6. And then we're going to try The 2, nope, that's too dark for the 2. I think this one's a little closer to the 3. So here's my color chart. I can hold on to it till later. I'm going to put this in the freezer, and I will be painting with these probably tomorrow. I'm going to be working on small value studies. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Come see me again.